Welcome to HR Voices, a podcast for independent HR and people professionals and the businesses they support. HR Voices is brought to you by the expert team at HR Independence Limited. We hope you enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to HR Voices. I'm Mary Asante, and this is a special episode where we are revisiting some of the most impactful conversations from the podcast so far. Over the next two episodes, we are reflecting on our top 10 HR Voices episodes of all time, not just based on downloads, but on conversations that continue to resonate with our listeners and shape how we think about HR consultancy today and how we support businesses to grow and to look after their employees as well as their leaders and managers. In this first episode, we are focusing on flexible working, career journeys, and the foundations of independent HR practice, themes that have consistently sparked interest, reflection, and debate. Let's get started. We begin with one of the earliest and the most enduring conversations on HR Voices, our episode with Emma Cleary from Flexibility Matters. What made this episode stand out then and is so relevant now is Emma's framing of flexible working as cultural, not contractual. This wasn't about policies or perks, it was about trust, outcomes, and moving away from presenteeism. Emma reminded us that flexibility means different things to different people, and that HR's role is to help organizations design arrangements that work for both individuals and the business. My reflection here is that flexible working isn't a trend or a benefit. It's a strategic lever. Well, when done well, it drives engagement, inclusion, and increases retention. When done badly, however, it exposes deeper cultural issues. Flexible working and flexibility generally remains a challenge for some businesses. And so it's really important that you pay attention to your culture, to your organization, in your organization, to the people, the teams that you have within your organization, and see how best you can put in place flexible working strategies to help you with your recruitment, with engaging staff, as I said, inclusion and the retention of your staff.
Because flex has to work for everybody. But I think that the thing that I've noticed most recently is that the whole flexible working discussion is bound up with a cultural discussion, because it's all very well talking about flexible working, but if you get into a business that really doesn't support that flexible culture, even though the pandemic's been and gone and we're on the other side of it now, if someone's expecting something that the business as a whole doesn't hold dear to itself, then it won't work. So the whole cultural piece is also close to our heart, because we don't want to put people into businesses that really don't support flex, because it won't work. I was talking yesterday about a company that we work with called Paddle. They're a financial services organization, and they are remote but have hubs, and they bring their paddlers into paddle huddles 3 times a year, I think it is, maybe 4. And they bring the whole company together to create this sense of purpose and common direction, so that everyone feels invested in what a paddle person looks like and how they operate. And there are many examples of that, but I think it's really important that you bring your people together so that you understand what your culture is. Otherwise the culture's lost. Even if you then go away and work in your remote spaces, I think that sort of distilled bond of what a culture is so important, led by and modeled by senior managers.
So our next top 10 episode took flexible working from theory into practice, where we spoke to Chris Scott from Accelerate with a real-world case study on the 4-day working week. This conversation resonated because it was honest. We explored not just the benefits, but the realities, trial periods, productivity measurements, client expectation, and leadership behavior. One of the key insights was that a 4-day week only works when it's designed intentionally, not when 5 days worth of work is simply squeezed into 4 longer ones. My takeaway from this episode is that alternative working patterns succeed when organizations are willing to redesign how work is done, not just reduce hours on paper.
We trialed it, first of all. We decided we'd go for a 3-month trial to give it a really fair crack and to really see if we can identify every possible thing that could go wrong or be a challenge or would make it difficult to achieve. And we decided right from the beginning that it would be 80% hours rather than extended working days, still for 100% pay. So that was the prerequisite, really. It was like, we mustn't compromise on our lives on the 4 days that we are at work. And we did a bit of a benchmark around how productive we thought we were at the beginning so that we had something to measure at the end of it. And it's very much a finger in the air, how do you feel type measure. But actually, it did come through. The productivity did actually get much better and the quality of work didn't get compromised at all. We had all of those initial thoughts around, okay, from a client perspective, we do still need to be available to some degree 5 days a week. So actually that suggested maybe a roster system. So we would take it in turns to work Fridays, just to have someone in the office, someone to answer the phone, someone who could respond to anything that came in. And actually, we then decided from there that it was only fair that if you were working that Friday, because that's the day that we decided would be the easiest for most people to take off and extend the weekend, that if you were working that Friday, then you'd have the Monday of the same week off instead, so that every working week always added up to 4, no matter where you were in that roster pattern. And before you had to work a Friday, you got the weekend before with 4 days. So it was a very easy sell to everybody at that point that they would be able to do that. We committed on all of our social channels, primarily LinkedIn, to keep people updated with what we were doing and to be really honest about the challenges that we were facing. Because one of the things we discovered in our research is that everybody was saying it was amazing, it was brilliant. And we're like, no, in reality, there's got to be something that isn't right. And actually no one's talking about that. So let's put our people consultancy cap on now and let's share actually where we struggle with it.
Our episode with Steve Herbert added a vital area on flexibility and flexible working, added a layer of realism to the flexible working conversation. We explored how flexibility looks beyond office-based roles, particularly in sectors like healthcare, logistics, and manufacturing, where physical presence still matters. Steve challenged the idea that one model fits all, encouraging organizations to think creatively about alternatives such as term time working, varied shifts, patterns, and sector-specific solutions. For me, this episode reinforced the role of HR as translator, turning ambition into practical, workable solutions that are fair, sustainable, and clearly communicated. Thank you very much. Before we bring it to an end, what are your top 3 or 5 tips for employers looking at introducing flexible working within the environment?
Well, I think number one remains as it was, which is make sure the employer genuinely wants to go that way first. So that's number one. Number two, if they don't, try and persuade them using facts, figures, because there's plenty out there that you can use. And if they still know, then there's no point in carrying on down that line. Assuming you're getting the green light on the first two, going back to your point, I think, Mary, engage with the workforce, find out what the workforce are actually going to welcome, because there is nothing worse than coming up with a policy that strikes you as a great deal, strikes the management as a great deal, and the employees just look at you aghast. Well, why would I want to do that? And we've all been at companies where that's happened. That everything's put forward to you and you think, well, that's no use to me at all. So engage with the workers, make sure that they actually want some flexibility and what may work best for them, and then communicate it well. Whatever you're going to do, communicate it well, communicate it regularly, and make sure you keep doing that in a variety of mediums until everyone's got the message and keeps getting the message.
No discussion of flexible working is complete without considering the legal landscape. And our discussion with Kevin Poulter from Freeths provided a crucial perspective. Kevin helped us to explore flexible working through a legal lens, emphasizing that many refusals are rooted in trust rather than lawful reasoning. He reminded us that culture often overtakes what's written in contracts, and that inconsistency creates risk. We also discussed how the pandemic changed expectations permanently, making blanket refusals much harder to justify. My reflection on this one is that flexible working isn't just an HR issue, it's a leadership and governance issue. How organizations respond to requests say a great deal about their values. So thank you, Kevin, for this one. So let's start by talking about flexible working in itself. It does mean different things to different people.
Yeah.
From your point of view, what is flexible working?
Oh, from my point of view, well, I'll go from a legal point of view From my point of view, it's flexible working means it does mean different things to different people, and what they expect from it can be different things as well, which is one of the critical requirements, is to actually understand what people mean by it if you're going through this process. So from a legal point of view, at least, flexible working can mean about changing sort of more flexible hours, varying the hours of work, varying the days of work, and increasingly varying the place of work, whether it's having to go to the normal place that's usually the place where you're contracted to work from as an employee, or whether it's working remotely, whether that's from home, whether that's from your holiday home in the Caribbean, or whether that's working sort of in a coffee shop somewhere, or indeed even another office or workplace location that belongs to the organization. So it can mean different things to different people, but nearly always it means a change from the norm. And I think that's the key part.
A journey into HR consultancy. So we close part 1 with a deeply personal and popular episode with Michelle Hartley's journey into HR consultancy. Michelle's story resonated because it challenged the idea of a single linear path into independent practice. Her transition was gradual, values-led, and shaped by curiosity rather than a rigid plan. This episode highlighted the importance of community, creativity, and authenticity, and the idea that consultancy doesn't have to be competitive or isolating. For me, Michelle's journey is a reminder that successful HR consultancy starts with self-awareness, knowing what energizes you, where you add value, and how you want to work. Across these 5 episodes, a clear theme emerges. The future of work is flexible, human, and intentional. Whether we're talking about work patterns or career paths, the most successful approaches are grounded in trust, clarity, and thoughtful design.
Just to say, like, I want to keep my brain going. I think I can help you. I love design. I don't really know. Make you some infographics. I'll do it for free. I just want to keep myself going and be on the computer and stuff. And she said, well, why don't you just come and do a bit of work for me? Like, I've got some, some L&D stuff going on. I've got some client work, and we can do the design bit if that's what you fancy. So that's where it started. And I just thought, oh, if I can just earn enough to pay for my car, that'll do. Because that was my one trapping of corporate life that I couldn't let go of. I don't know why. Nowadays, I don't care. But at the time, I was like, I can't let go of the car. That's a big failure if I have to let go of the car. So I just wanted to earn enough to pay for my car. So I just started doing it. And on my first day, I sold to an ex-manager of mine 2 consultancy days. And my target was only 500 quid a month. And I sold these £1,600 at the time, and I was like, oh, I might need a bigger goal. And then all of a sudden it just kind of went from there. So it ended up being like a really interesting challenge for me in terms of thinking about what the next thing could be and how it could work. And so when I then kind of stepped out into proper, when I was like, okay, I'll give it a go, I then had some interesting times around what I could do and what I loved to do and what people would pay me for. And actually they're really different things. So when I thought about what I could do, I genuinely thought, well, I'll just be an outsourced HRD for companies that can't afford one. So I'll just do all of the HRDing, all of that HR stuff when they can't afford an HR person, and I'll do that, which I did start to do. But again, it didn't set me afire, and it just felt like the same old. And I just thought, oh, this isn't what I want. And I really missed having my team around me for the development, for the banter, for the fun. And that is where then this HR for HR little light bulb started to glow. And I created the HR Geek Squad. And again, I genuinely thought, right, if I can get 20 people, we can just have fun. It will feel like which is beautiful. And I always say that to people. That's one of the first things I say, actually, is there's enough work for everybody. And it's funny, when you say it to new consultants, it's almost like all the tension goes out of them. Like they just go, oh yeah. And actually I've genuinely, feast and famine months where you've had a quiet month and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this feels a bit scary. But, there's always enough work. Something always comes in, or there's something where I'm like, oh, I could use this time to create something, and that in that space something will happen. And I genuinely do think there's enough work there for everybody. I mean, I pass work to people all the time. People pass work to me because if you're well networked in your consultant community, you know what people love to do, you know what their specialisms are, you know what their thing is, and you want to pass the work to the best person, right? And I wouldn't ever pass work to somebody who I didn't know could do a great job for me. So I think it's really important. And that's where the network comes in. And actually I think a lot of HR consultants think that they start and they have to be by themselves. Well, it's me now. I'm an independent. That's how it works. And actually, it isn't. It's about, for me anyway, it's about that that invisible network of people that will help you, support you, chat to you, have that howling moment where you've messed something up. But that's what it's about, right? Is having that safe space.
In the next episode, we'll shift our focus to expertise, confidence, and professional maturity, exploring employment law, investigations, interim HR, and leadership resilience. Thank you for listening to this special episode of HR Voices. If you've enjoyed this recap, please subscribe, leave a review, or share with someone in your HR or business network. You can find more information about HR Voices and HR Independence at hrindependence.co.uk. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of HR Voices. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover or would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at hrvoices@hrindependence.co.uk. Tune in next time.